Hello, I'm Tyler Parker. I'm a Power Platform developer, and in this video, I'm going to be taking you through an overview of row-level security. So before we get into the report here, it's important to understand what row-level security is. If we take the name at face value, it is applying security at the row level. Normally, when you want somebody to see a report, you would share it with them and they can see everything included in it. If you wanted to take it a step further, you can configure the report to where it will only show certain rows of data depending on the user that's signed in, or at least depending on the role that you've assigned to them. We'll see that towards the end of the video. But the benefit of this is it allows you to distribute the same report across multiple users, even if they're not allowed to see the same data. Whereas if you couldn't do that, you would be creating totally separate reports and distributing those to all those individuals, which would not be fun. So now we have a general idea of what row level security is, we can jump into our report. So our first visual here is a table that consists of sales data for a office supplies company. Over here we have a little bit of sales data. We have a product name, the name of the individual who made the purchase. But right here, we have these 5 columns that we're going to be focusing on in this demo. We have market, region, country, state, and city. Down here, we have our pie chart. This pie chart is showing the sum of sales per country. And right now, since we can see all of the data, we've got these really thin slivers of data here. But as we go through the roles, we'll see more and more countries get cut off of this, even to the point where we're honing in on such a specific location that there's only one country showing. Over here, we have a bar chart. No location-based data here. It's mostly here to serve as an indicator for the amount of records being shown. Right now, there's been over 100,000 sales of individual items, and this number will start to go down as we go through the different roles. And over here, we have our map visual, which is simply showing where the point of sale was made. So now that we know what's kind of going on in the report, we can get into our roles. So the first role we're going to look at is this US role. All right, now that I've selected the US role, we can see quite a bit has changed here. All of our sales data has been filtered down, whereas this was showing, I think, somewhere in Africa before. Now we can only see sales made in the United States. Our country pie chart has been filtered down to just the United States. So we just got one big dot here. This one is a little less noticeable, but before there were over 100,000 sales made. And then probably the most obvious change right here is our map. Almost all the dots are exclusive to the United States. Now I do want to call out with this visual in particular, you will see dots outside of the United States. What's happening here though is the name of the city outside of the United States matches the name of the city inside of the United States. So it's still showing the dot on the map. So if I were to click on orange here in France, our main table gets filtered down and we can see all of these are within the United States. There just happens to be a city called Orange in New Jersey. So this visual is also showing the one in France, but no data in France is being shown here. So now that we've seen that the data is being filtered to only include US sales, we'll go in and take a look and see how that actually works. So we'll go down to US, and here we have all of our tables. Here, we're only really looking at orders and users. And you'll notice that the orders table has this filter icon here. Click on that, it says orders market equals US. So what's happening here is we're taking a look at the orders table. We're focusing in on the market column in the orders table, and we only want it to show where market equals US. Pretty straightforward, but depending on the amount of users that need to access this, it might not be very useful. In this example, we're looking at a company that has worldwide sales. Presumably they have worldwide employees, right? You don't want to be making a role for every single country, or even worse, maybe every single city. That's just not manageable. So that's where these other roles come into play. So if we go into our markets role, you can see a little bit more complex DAX. Still not super crazy. There is one feature of Power BI that I want to highlight here that's really critical to implementing dynamic row level security, and that's this user principal name. What this does is it identifies the user that's signed in. Specifically, it uses their email, and you can use what I call the users table to manage the locations that they're allowed to see. So just to go through this really quick, basically what's this doing is it's going to the users table, finding the record that is associated with the signed in user's email. It's returning the market that was given to them. And finally, it filters out all of the sales or orders data that isn't that market. If we go to our users table, we can see that here. I have assigned my email to this record here, which has kind of France centered data. And right here in the market column, we have EU. So if I view it as market, click on that, see quite a bit has changed. In our table, we have all sales that have been made in the EU. In here, we have our countries that are included in the EU, at least in the sample data. There are some other European countries that are categorized in a different market. So here's our market view. This is really the highest level of a view that we have in this report, other than seeing all of the data. So if we want to take it a step down and go to region, this will have a little bit more of a subtle change. It's just kind of trimming off some of the other European countries. But here we still have France, Germany, Austria, Netherlands, Belgium, and Switzerland included. So this is basically showing the Central Europe. And you may notice as we go through these roles, these are becoming more and more in line with each other. All of these are EU, all of these are Central, and then fortunately we can't see our column, but this is the country column, which is our next role. So if we click that, you should see them condensed down into France, and it does. Of course, our pie chart is now just a big dot because France is the only country showing. Probably getting a good idea of what's going to happen next. Go to state, it's even smaller. This is the state that Paris is in, which we go to city. We're finally down to the final dot. This view might be appropriate for somebody who has a store in Paris. Of course, there might be multiple, so you would need to add a little bit of extra logic in the role to account for that. But they're not able to see all the stores' sales data, which is kind of the point with this. There's still one more place we need to go in order to completely implement row level security, and that is the Power BI service. So if we go into our workspace, find our data set, we want to click on these ellipses and go to security. These should look familiar. These are our roles. We have our city all the way up through markets, and then we have our US role. That was the very simple where anybody in the role would only see US data. But we can see here that I have already added myself to country. Now, this doesn't actually really do anything because as the admin of the data set, I am by default allowed to see everything, but I can't add somebody else here. We will add them there. While they are added here, it's important to know that they do need to be part of a specific workspace permission level. So if we go to our workspace, manage access, here we can see, like I said, I am the admin of the workspace. But now that I've added Kyle, by default, he is the viewer, which is critical because if you are a member or a contributor, or as I mentioned, an admin, that role of security would not apply to you. You have to be a viewer in order for that to work.